Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build, a free online workshop for those of you who want to get your California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all parts of the license application and give you some practical tips on how to complete it correctly, and also give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications to get your California contractor's license. We'll also help you get ready for the licensing exams and give you a link to the video that shows you exactly what to expect on your test day. Today's webcast is brought to you by the California Contractor State License Board, the government agency responsible for regulating California's construction industry. My name is Rick Lopes. We are joined today by our licensing chief, Justin Paddock, and former licensing manager and current enforcement supervisor, Anna Rodriguez. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're also joined at the beginning of our workshop by Jim Ruane. Jim is one of our board members and this year serves as the chair of our licensing committee. In case you didn't know, that CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs the administrative policies for our operation. The board is made up of 10 public members, including one labor representative, one local building official, and one representative of a statewide senior citizen organization, and also 5 contractors. Appointments to the contractors board are made by the governor and the state legislature. Mr. Ruane, who's from San Bruno in the San Francisco Bay Area, was appointed to our board in September of 2019. He's the president and qualifier for his company's C9 drywall and C35 lathing. Jim, I hope that's right, lathing and plastering classifications. Mr. Ruane has been a licensee since 1977. In addition, Mr. Ruane served as the mayor of San Bruno from 2009 to 2017, helping lead that city through the aftermath of the deadly PG&E gas line explosion back in September of 2010. He joins us to welcome you all to our workshop. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Rick, and to Anna and Justin also, and welcome to all of the potential licensees. This is great to be here with you this morning. As Rick said, I'm Jim Ruane. I'm the specialty contractor member of the Contractor State License Board, and this year I'm also serving as the chair of the board's licensing committee. I want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about the process of getting your California contractor's license. As I mentioned, I'm a specialty contractor, a member of the board. My company holds a C9 drywall and C35 lath and plaster license, and my company has been around incorporated. Actually, my uncle started the company about 1940, but the latest incorporation license was in 1954. So we've been around a long time and have done very special work all around the state of California. It's a very exciting place to be and place to work. The industries you have chosen to be in, no matter what industry it is, you just need to work hard. And no matter what your interest or abilities are, the opportunities are endless. Our governor, Gavin Newsom, is very progressive. He has, despite COVID-19 pandemic, he has expressed an interest about building millions and millions of residential units in the state of California. Now, you might say residential units. Well, along with those residential units come neighborhoods, come firehouses, come municipal buildings, come office buildings, come sewage treatment plants. There's going to be a need for specialty contractors and general contractors in all of these entities. It's going to be very, very busy in the state of California for many years to come. And it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for all of you to get involved. You can be engineering contractors and involved in larger scale, or you can be like me, specialty contractors doing specialized work within those larger entities. It doesn't matter if you want to be a one-person entity or if you want to grow to a larger company. The opportunity is there for you. And in today's workshop, Justin, Anna, and Rick will do their best to help you understand what you need to know to get your license. You will also want to spend some time on the CSLB website. Check out the study guides and other information that'll help you succeed in this great industry. And the best of luck to all of you as you begin this exciting new chapter in your career. It's a wonderful time to get your license and a wonderful time to be a licensed contractor in the state of California. So Rick and Anna and Justin, thank you very much for allowing me to kick this off.
Great. Thank you very much, Jim. We appreciate you joining us. And And I actually feel like I wish I was in a position to get my contractor's license. There's a lot of work. So this is really a great time for you to be. Right now we've got a little bit over 100 people that are online with us. We had a little over 400 who signed up. So we expect hopefully some more people will be joining us. But for those of you who are here, thank you for joining us. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and turn off our cameras so we can kind of focus on the presentation itself. And so you can focus and not have to worry about looking at us. Please note, though, after a 3-month closure due to COVID-19, CSLB's test centers opened up in mid-June. We're working as quickly as we can to get through the backlog of exams that built up during the closure. We're administering about 1,000 exams every week. One of the things that's making it tough, though, is that on any given day, between 10 and 20% of the applicants fail to show up to take their test. So as you move through the process, be sure you're good with your test date. Write it down, put it on your calendar, don't blow it off. Not only is that going to delay you getting your license, you're also going to delay another applicant who's trying to get your license because you took up the extra spot. Also, if you're watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to participate, you'll need to move over and join us on WebEx. There's a banner with a link at the top of our homepage, which is cslb.ca.gov. That's where you can also download this presentation to follow along. The presentation includes clickable bonus links that appear on slides throughout the workshop. Now, we're going to be presenting a lot of information to you today, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We'll archive the video of this workshop and we'll put it on our YouTube channel so you can go back and watch again. Now, to ask a question, please use the Q&A feature that's on the bottom right of your screen. Make sure you send your questions to all panelists. And if you can't find the Q&A, click on the participant button on the bottom right of your screen. The Q&A should open up as an option. You'll also want to follow along with that because you'll see the questions that other people are asking. So if somebody else has asked a question that you were thinking about asking, don't feel like you've got to ask it a second time. We'll definitely be sure to go through it. I'll try to be answering questions through the presentation, and then after the presentation, which takes about 45 minutes or so, we will spend the rest of the time answering your questions. Finally, we do tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how you document your work experience and what credit you can get for your education or military service. Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you wait to send us those questions until after you see that part of the workshop. Okay, a little disclaimer here. The information obtained during this webcast is not, nor is it intended to be legal advice. While the webcast does contain general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you do have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who's familiar with California construction law, or review the 2020 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free on the CSLB website, or you can purchase a copy from the publisher LexisNexis. There are links for both of those options at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, so here's the list of what we're going to be covering today. We're going to take you through the process of applying for your California contractor's license. First, who needs to get a license? Why get a contractor's license? What's the minimum qualifications you will need to get a license and what credits you might qualify for? The types of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications. We will spend a lot of time giving you tips to help fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. Fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help you also get ready for the exam or exams you'll need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before your license is issued, things such as a bond and insurance.
Sorry, y'all, I'm still getting used to this. This is Justin. So first today, we'll take a look at who needs a license. Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes both labor and materials. The law doesn't let you break down a project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around that $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what is the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. We've got a link to that code at the top of the page if you downloaded the presentation. I'll read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part we underlined. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner, building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, purports to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. In other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself, why should you get a license? Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows that you've taken the steps to get licensed and that you're serious about your career choice. It also allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanic lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with the fear of getting caught. Contracting without a California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and or a $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines anywhere in between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So, what do you need to get your license? First, it's important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here is the short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or valid individual taxpayer identification number or ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We will spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in just a few minutes.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education, technical training, and apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions about this. First, CSLB cannot prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications that we receive and process every month, we don't have the staff time that would be needed to prejudge your experience. We can only review your documents after you have applied for your license. Next, to get education credit, the course work must be directly related to the work that you will be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning you will need to have at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of educational credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB written documentation. That means a copy of any apprenticeship completion certifications that you have, or get official technical school or college transcripts. You want to get those transcripts sent to you, but do not open the envelope. Leave it sealed and include it with your CSLB application packet. Please note that high school courses will not earn you any credit towards your contractor's license.
If you're looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience, you'll need to get your license, and this is the most important slide of this entire workshop. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for your education. Note that for some areas, we are only giving you averages, or you will see that your credit will be, determined on a case-by-case basis. We're not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on this slide. So our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you were hoping for. Let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most education credit you can get is for a Bachelor's of Science degree in construction management. That degree will get you the full 36 months of credit. Next is a master's or bachelor's degree in business or a law degree. Any of those will get you 24 months of credit. An associate in science degree in construction management will get you 18 months credit. A bachelor's degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. An associate degree in a major besides construction management will get you an average of 6 months credit. Credit for individual college classes are given on a case-by-case basis, usually with a maximum of 6 months credit. Apprenticeship completion certificates will get you 24 to 36 months, depending on the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker's apprenticeship gets you 24 months credit for the C20 HVAC and C43 sheet metal classification only. A lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in a C7 low voltage and C10 electrical classification only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you've taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, do not use your education credits to try to squeak by that 4-year or 48-month requirement.
If you served in the military, some of that service might count as well. On the bottom of the page, you'll see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program where you can learn more. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of our CSLB test centers. One exam is on the California business law. The other is specific to the trade covered by the license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we will discuss later. Those licenses only require the qualifier to take the law and business exam. As we mentioned, the qualifier is the one who must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We are not going to spend too much time talking about the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both exams if a very specific situation occurs. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of this page here. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth into that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They also are responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you're trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you are going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is a sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second, a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as a responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licenses are corporations. In a distant third is a partnership, where either the general partners or a responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. That's 2% of our licensees. Finally, a limited liability company, or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. About 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Okay, so now let's talk about the license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select only one when filing your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under these 3 distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classification list at the bottom of this screen. First, in Class A, or General Engineering Contractors, these are the contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones that build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are just over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is our Class B, or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors here in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry, unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing and carpentry. There's no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final classes are C, or Specialty Contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include the C10 Electrical Contractors, C20 HVAC Contractors, C27 Landscaping Contractors, C33 Plumbing Contractors, C39 Roofing Contractors, C46 Solar Contractors, and C53 Swimming Pool Contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited special classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61/D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
So on this screen, there are 2 forms that you're going to need. On the left is the license application, and on the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is a bonus link on the left side of the page, so be sure to download this presentation. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little bit later. Okay. So now let's break down the steps of the application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you're using an RME or a responsible managing employee as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with the license qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers are in a different part of the state and cannot exercise direct supervision as needed, or they aren't willing, or maybe they don't even understand their role as a qualifier. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. There are 2 options. 1, application for an original contractor license, or 2, application for original contractor license examination waiver, with that and also a reference to our Business and Professions Code 7065. We've got links to both at the bottom of the page.
The next step is going to be to determine your company name. Take a look at the application for examples. Something that you want to keep in mind is that your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you are getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have a company named John Smith Plumbing Construction, Heating and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name that you have registered with the California Secretary of State's office. The names of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application. You can also use what's called a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. Something to keep in mind when using a DBA is you want to make sure it's not misleading, and you must use that name in all advertising and on all of your contracts. Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualification. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. We mentioned that a few minutes ago. There's a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing that you're honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. Proofread for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all the necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date your application before mailing it in. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your examinations. If so, complete a request form and submit that with application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little later.
Next, we'll move on to a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for criminal background checks. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB depending on the type of business entity. 1, all applicants. Next, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, and all home improvement salespersons. If you are in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations around California broken down by county on the Attorney General's website. We have got a link here, or you can simply go to the California Attorney General's website and search for live scan. You will also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. Now the bad news, if you're out of state, it's going to be tough for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. Those take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI and the Department of Justice to process. When things settle down with COVID-19, you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB considers. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since the conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions within 7 years of application date. For example, the applications filed this year, we would look back to 2013. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back 3 years from the application date to 2017. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only about 1% of the total applications we get based on criminal convictions. You'll also note that the bonus link to our fingerprint information at the bottom of the page.
Okay, along with the education credits we talked about earlier, this next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and a part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It's how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2010. The experience must be no less than a journeyman level or as a foreperson or supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journey person is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified, as opposed to a trainee, and they can perform the trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed, and simply attach them at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms as needed to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person certifying your work describes the actual work you performed and the dates in which you performed them. We will now be providing some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are just examples.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of experience you're trying to demonstrate. The first example is journey person experience. The overall theme we'll keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. Note, the work experience form should be completed by your certifier, someone who has knowledge and observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Okay, so our first example here is for the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work, like this. Bob performed rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and floor on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something more generic like this. Residential general building trades. For a four-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and/or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job site performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, an unacceptable description would be something more generic like this. Residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor's level. For example, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something like this. Residential general building trades. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were either out-of-state, military, on federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, a foreperson, or a supervising employee. A tip: be very specific about your duties and the employment circumstances. Our next example is for a C-27 landscaping contractor. First, for experience at the journeyman level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be something like this. Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. An unacceptable description would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C-27 landscaping contractor, The best work experience description for a 4-person would be something like this. Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description again would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. I think you're getting the idea. We just want very detailed explanations. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. The best description would be, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Jane supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable here for the supervising employee would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, and planting. Finally, for our out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for general building contractors applies. Be sure to include examples for your out-of-state work, as well as work for the military or work done on federal lands or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and employment circumstances. By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all information provided for at least 3% of all of the applications we receive. On our next 3 slides, we run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application is selected and you are asked to provide this additional documentation. This supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You only need to provide this information if you are requested by a CSLB staff member. On the lower right of your screen, you'll see a link to the publication on your website, along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at the chart, you can see that the first column are acceptable documents that we would accept if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your experience if you are self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need for applying for a Class B general contractor license, and you need to use your own builder experience to meet the requirements. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link to view and print this publication. Here's the final page of acceptable documentation. If you do not have this information readily available to you now, you may want to begin to gather it, just in case you're asked to provide it in the future. Remember, the goal is you are trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. And remember, you don't need to submit this with your application. This is only if requested by a CSLB staff member. CSLB staff may contact the certifier of your experience or other parties to verify your experience.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications a month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They've got 2 pieces of advice. First, do not cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take the trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay. That is the content you'll need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, double check to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well. And do not forget to include the all-important $330 application fee. You'll pay the $200 initial license fee after you pass your exam or exams. Then put your application packet in the mail to CSLB or hand deliver it to one of our public counters. We've got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen with our office locations.
Okay, so now that we have gone through the information you'll need to include, here's a closer look at the application so you can see where all this information goes. We're going to want to look at the next screen. Section 1 is where you list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure the name that you have selected is compatible with the classification and the entity that you are applying for, and that it's not misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that the name you provided in this section matches exactly the business name registered with the Secretary of State. In line number 2 is where you will indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address and the phone number that you list here on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. The next section is our business entity section. In section 2 is where if you are applying for a corporation or an LLC, is where you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you will list the qualifier's information. Remember, the qualifier is a person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of the construction operations. The qualifier will be the person taking the examination. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers that you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you are the only person that will be listed on the license, you would enter 100%. On line 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions, depending on the entity you have selected. You can find more information on this on page 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line number 8 is where you will sign and date your application. Section 4 is where you will list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, president, secretary, and treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of the application instructions. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLC, you'll want to make sure that all the personnel that you have listed with your Secretary of State must be listed in this section here. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application here in section 4. Section 5 is a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to be covering those here. But section 6 now, qualifier, education, apprenticeship, licensure, and military. You may be granted credit towards the 4-year experience requirements based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. Get those sealed transcripts sent to you, then include it with your application packet. Do not have the program send the transcripts directly to CSLB. You don't want to take the chance that in the case we're not able to match them up with your application, so make sure they mail them to you. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. This credit is not on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit towards the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year timeframe does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it must be translated. Now we will discuss the certification of work experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you're going to list the information for your employer where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, you want to make sure you mark that box in line number 2. If you're applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own property, make sure to mark the box in line number 4. Part 2. This part will be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or a full-time basis. Keep in mind, if you were working on a part-time, you're only going to receive 50% of the credit for that time. which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years to meet that 4-year requirement. Here on number 6 is where your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical duties for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in CSLB's Description of Classification booklet available on our website. Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. Finally, in the next section, this is where this is going to also be completed by your certifier, and they need to list the relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification.